It's your time for Chai with Nanice. Get ready for substance, clarity, change, and especially empowerment. Get ready to turn over stones, uncover stories, and get to the heart of the matter in every area of your life. Any mood runs, any emotion flies, and your dreams are within your grasp. There are no limits or boundaries, and your comfort zone is out of reach, yet it's the safest place you will ever be. Come in, sit down, and have some chai with Nanice.
Welcome to Chai with Nanice. I'm Nanice. I know we're just about to start the show, but I still can't tell you what it's about, because today we have decided that we are going to let some higher power decide the format and the theme of today's show. And the way we're going to do that is I have a deck of Osho Zen tarot cards. And this is a particular deck that I actually use for my own self-awareness and self-enlightenment. And I might ask the deck a question and just pick a card and see what that card is saying to me and what message I can receive. Well, today we're going to do the same thing. But the question's going to be, what's today's show about? And so, as I sit here with my beautiful, amazing friend, Deborah Dallas, otherwise known as Debbie, we are very excited to get started. Now, Debbie is a professional intuitive. She's a personal business coach, a spiritual guide, a natural empath. She's trained in energy therapy. She's a Reiki master teacher. She's a master rapid eye therapist and an emotional-free technique therapist, as well as a writer and editor for Personal Develop magazine. That's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a lot more that goes along with that, too.
I know. Those are just the highlights.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Debbie, for being on the show today. I'm really, really excited, and I'm very curious about what the show will be about.
So am I.
Yeah.
So am I.
So I'm gonna let you pick a card.
Okay.
Okay.
There we go.
Oh,
the Lovers.
That's a nice card. Okay. So the Lovers is this beautiful card with a red heart and wings on it with some flowers and two androgynous people looking into each other's eyes with a sign of sacred geometry. And so I'm just going to look up the meaning of this card in our Osho Tarot book here. Okay, the Lovers. These three things are to be taken note of. The lowest love is sex. It is physical. And the highest refinement of love is compassion. Sex is below love. Compassion is above love. Love is exactly in the middle. Very few people know what love really is. 99% of people, unfortunately, think that sexuality is love. It is not. Sexuality is very animal. It certainly has the potential of growing into love, but is not actual love, only a potential. If you become aware and alert, meditative, then sex can be transformed into love. And if your meditation becomes total, absolute love can be transformed into compassion. Sex is the seed, love is the flower, compassion is the fragrance. Buddha has defined compassion as love plus meditation. When your love is not just a desire for the other, when your love is not only a need, when your love is a sharing, when your love is not that of a beggar, but an emperor, when your love is not asking for something in return, but is ready only to give for the sheer joy of giving, then add meditation to it, and the pure fragrance of compassion is released. Compassion is the highest phenomenon. Wow. This is really fascinating to me, Debbie, because that this card would come up, because one of the things that I know and love so much about you is your ability to truly love. And you have such an understanding that most people don't have. And in fact, in the time that we've known each other, you have taught me so much about unconditional love. And I understand things about myself at such a greater level because of that.
Thank you. Well, it was a surprise to me to see that that's what came out.
Yeah.
But that's the energy that we're all in and beginning to experience. More people are coming to a better understanding of what love truly is. And it's not about the old paradigms that we had wrapped around it, especially sexually.
Right.
And
right.
so Yeah, and you're the one that's always telling me that I am love.
You are love.
Thank you.
Unconditional love.
Thank you.
And I've seen you in some pretty challenging situations where most people would close their hearts down. Most people would, try to pretend they love through it, and not you. I've seen you hurt and still love, and that's extraordinary.
That's what unconditional love really is about, and I was gifted with the knowingness when I came to this world and this particular life that I was here to love.
Yeah.
And so that has been my quest throughout my life, is to just be love.
Yes.
Hasn't always been easy.
Yeah.
And I'm sure for a lot of people out there it's not always easy. But when you stand in that energy of unconditional love, there's nothing more rewarding and more giving.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it's not easy to stand in it at times.
No, there's times when I've had my little temper tantrums and I've called out to Spirit and said, I don't want to love them this much.
Right.
And, just because of the experience that was going on that was uncomfortable at the moment, but when I sat still and presenced myself, it wasn't true. I did want to love that much and do. What a lot of people have a misunderstanding about is when they get into some severe pain that's connected with love, and they focus more on the pain and less on the love.
Yeah.
And one of the things I learned with those that I loved so deeply, and my dad being one of them, that I so deeply loved, and it was so painful in working with him at times, and especially when he died. And I had a deep, deep knowingness and awareness that, I did want to hurt that bad because that meant that I loved that much.
Right.
And I never not want to love that much.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think happens when people shut down their love? So they're in a situation where they're losing somebody, or somebody's betrayed them, or just they're not feeling so good. And what do you think happens when a person shuts down their heart and stops loving?
They're killing themselves. They're dying. They're dying spiritually, and they're dying physically when that happens.
Yeah.
It's funny that you brought out the word betrayal, because that is something that I've experienced a lot of in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Until it escalated to the point that my awareness was, and it was those that were very, very close to me that I experienced betrayal with, and it was very, very devastating.
Yeah.
And I went to the point of, I don't want betrayal in my life anymore.
Yeah.
So I went and took the steps that it took. I didn't stop loving them.
Right.
That's key, is that I didn't stop loving them. But I also didn't start putting myself, I stopped putting myself out there to be a victim.
Right.
And when you understand that, and you stop being a victim to yourself and to others, you can change the energy so quickly.
Yeah.
And if you stay in the love and continue to go to that place of the love, then it transmutes all the energy, and people start showing up in your space differently.
Yeah. Yeah. You made several really good points there. And one is that just because you love someone doesn't mean that you don't have boundaries, and that doesn't mean that you have to stay with that person even.
Exactly. Sometimes love is very much about letting go.
Yeah.
And seeing what's going to happen. You don't stop loving the person. But there are many times in our life, and I've seen it happen not just with myself, but with many others, that the contract between the two people, regardless of how much they love each other, is done.
Wow.
And it's time to move on. And you do it in the love.
Right. Right.
A lot of people aren't at that place yet.
Yeah.
And they do it in revenge and anger and hatred, and it just creates more havoc within their life until they can finally heal to the point of getting to that place of realizing how much love they still have for that person and allowing it.
Well, I think it's also a safe way to leave a relationship. It's much safer to leave when you're angry and hurt and, you're separating from the other person. It's very hard to leave a relationship when there's love.
Yes, that's true. And that's why we call into us and bring in the havoc and the pain.
Yes.
Because it is easier for us to walk away from it.
Yeah.
And I'd like to point out, though, the only reason it's easier in that aspect is because we believe it's easier in that aspect.
Well, it's like we're protecting our hearts. So it's like, and rather than feel like our hearts are breaking open, we put up this barrier that we call anger or, whatever other feelings. We have a million of them. And that becomes like this shield. We think it's protecting us. But you're right. That shield is actually what kills us and eats at us little by little.
Yes, that's exactly it. And coming to an understanding of that and what we're doing to ourselves, it's about going in and lowering that shield within yourself.
Yeah.
Many people don't realize that when they put up a protective barrier against somebody else, that it's themselves they're actually shielding themselves from.
Always.
Always.
Yeah. There's no exception. So if somebody's listening to us and thinking, well, do I? Is that what it is for me when I put up a shield? The answer is yes.
Yes. And that doesn't mean I've worked with abuse programs before, and by no means misunderstand this. That doesn't mean that if you're in an abusive situation that you don't remove yourself from that.
Absolutely.
That's part of understanding and loving yourself enough to take yourself out of the victim mode. So I don't want anybody to misinterpret that.
Right.
But then in doing that, there's still that healing process of going back in then and healing. Why did you allow yourself to be victimized in an abusive situation?
How is that a mirror for what you're feeling inside? Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you and I have both been on that end of the spectrum.
Absolutely.
So that's really something that's very powerful. And the same with a child. If a child's in an abusive situation, they need to be cared for and taught how to care for themselves in those situations. So that's vital. But nonetheless, that doesn't mean that we're not shielding ourselves from ourselves.
Right.
And that's what's bringing it in. And once you're able to go in and lift that barrier of protection against yourself, it's not easy.
Yes.
And it shifts a lot of belief systems when that starts to happen. And that can feel really uncomfortable, mainly because we fall into wanting to be in familiar energy.
Yeah.
Not always good energy, but it's familiar.
It's our comfort zone. It's what feels safe.
Right.
And what I'm hearing you saying, which I totally agree with, is that the key is the self-love.
Yes.
And without that, very often we do find ourselves in relationships that are dysfunctional or even abusive. If you can't love yourself, if you don't love yourself completely, then first of all, there's no way that you could really love anybody else.
Exactly.
Because you're constantly needing something from them. So, and it's the needing, like, you have to meet my needs, and you have to love me, and you have to, do all these things that I believe you should do if you really love me.
Yeah.
And then what happens is it creates this dynamic for the whole victim situation.
And it creates possessiveness.
Yes.
You'll see a lot of relationships where somebody's very, very possessive of the other person.
Yeah.
Very controlling. And that is actually a lack within themselves because they don't feel that they are worthy of that level of love that they can allow the other person to be free and not try to possess them.
Yeah.
Possession is always about the person. Jealousy is always about the person that is actually jealous. It's never about the other person.
Absolutely.
And all of that, these are just little bits and pieces that are a vibration that we need to look at within ourselves and then go in and start healing the belief systems that we have around that in order to be able to experience self-love.
Yeah. It's a hard one for a lot of people.
It is. And I'm not going to say it's been easy for me. It has been easy for me to love.
Yes.
That has always been my essence. And I was raised the youngest of 8 children. So I came from a pretty large family, and I always had that capacity for love. So that hasn't been an issue for me, but I still had all of the experiences from indoctrination, different belief systems that we have about ourselves that we're not good enough, and that's usually the number one.
Yes.
Is that we're not good enough, we're not worthy. And I had to go in and start peeling those away.
Yeah.
So that I could see and learn to love myself at the level that I felt I loved others.
Yes. Yes. And then the love comes from there.
Exactly.
It's like if you're empty and you're loving someone else, there's a point where there has to be a breakdown because you're not feeling full. So it's like even if the other person is loving you, if you're not loving yourself, you can't even feel their love. You can only feel somebody else's love to the degree that you love yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so it's like if you don't love yourself, there's a point where no matter how much you love someone else, your energy is either going to be diminished, there's going to be problems in the relationship. It can't possibly work. The only relationships that I believe really work, and what I mean by work is that there's a mutually loving, supportive relationship of connectedness and
Yes.
togetherness and all that when both people really love themselves and they honor themselves first, and you take these two people who just totally love and respect themselves, and then they get to give love to each other. But it's not like they're taking something away from themselves. It's more like an overflow.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. It's
Yeah.
an overflow, because the more that you're able to stand in that unconditional love without the neediness, the clinging, and that type of thing, which is trying to fill a void within yourself.
Yes.
So if you're not filling a void within yourself, then you automatically are giving freely, and it returns to you, and you get to receive freely as well.
Yes.
And that's when you have the perfect harmony of it.
Yes.
And it is possible. I can just hear energetically a lot of people out there are saying they're talking a bunch of garbage, that
Yeah.
that's not even possible.
Yeah.
It is. It is possible. And if you go to your heart of hearts, you will know that that is possible. That's what everybody is constantly trying to work towards
Yes.
and yearning for.
Yes. Because it's in our souls.
Exactly.
It's it's self-fulfillment.
Exactly.
It's soul fulfillment.
And that's why we put those struggles out there in front of ourselves to
Right.
work through,
Yes.
so that we can get the lesson from it and experience the joy in the lesson then.
Yes. And I think a good way to help bridge the gap, because I think you're right, a lot of people are thinking, like, that's not possible. That's like fairyland or something.
Yep.
And the way that I look at it is this. Let's say that you were just a soul without a body.
Okay.
Okay? And you just are all powerful. There's no boundaries, there's no hindrances. You just know who you are, and you're powerful, and you can go anywhere in eternity because you're this free soul. You remember who you really are.
Yes.
And so from the soul perspective, of course you can just love unconditionally. Of course your heart remains open because you know who you are.
You're in perfection.
Yes, there's nothing to lose, there's nothing at risk.
Right.
And the only reason that we don't experience that here on this planet very often is because we have forgotten who we really are.
That, and the fact that there's been for centuries now indoctrinations and teachings.
Yes.
Nobody's fault. It's not like blaming somebody, but
Right.
it's just been what our societies have created
Yes.
that have taught us that we have to self-sacrifice, and you have to give yourself up in order for this to happen and that to happen. And that's one of the beautiful awarenesses that came from Spirit so clearly, was that the time, number one, of sacrifice is over.
Yes.
It's not about
Yes.
sacrificing. It's about learning to live. And
Yes.
that is from the heart space.
Yes,
And when you're in that space, it is a beautiful space of allowance.
it is.
Doesn't mean issues don't still come up and bite you in the rear, because they do, and I
Yeah.
still have them.
Yeah.
But it gives you a much deeper depth
Right.
to be able to sit with it and look at what's happening and why, and then to do something about it. And as I said,
Right.
not to continue to victimize yourself or to allow yourself to be a victim.
Right. Right. It takes a lot of looking in.
It takes a lot of looking in. And frankly, that takes courage.
Yes. Yeah, it truly is the most courageous journey to be on.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And that's not, blowing anybody's horn particularly. It's just a fact. It takes courage to look deep within ourselves.
Yes.
And then to trust who we really are. And that's
Yeah.
one of the things I do when I work with people.
Yeah.
That somehow that came about to be one of my gifts, that I see people for who they truly are,
Yeah.
and I help them to see it within themselves.
Yeah.
So,
And you're exceptional at that.
oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Totally. So it's even if we have a sense of who we are, even if we know deep inside, yes, I'm this great, powerful being, unless we have experiences in our life that push us past that line of courage, that push us to unknown territories, that maybe feel like our heart's going to explode, or there's some kind of hurt involved. Unless we have those experiences, we really don't have a true knowing of who we really are.
Exactly, because we bring up the experience. There's a lot of talk about living your story. Well, the stories serve us in the sense that as long as we don't get so caught up in them that that's all we just keep reliving is the story, it actually is what molds us and creates our life experiences for us to tap into, just as you said, so that we have the experience that pushes us to that point of seeing that deeper level within inside of us, knowing that we're that much stronger, knowing that we can love that much deeper, knowing that life isn't over because everything is falling apart around us. And personally, I've had several times when I felt that way, that, oh my gosh, am I ever going to get through this?
Yes.
And when you do, it shows you a deeper level of yourself. And it's beautiful to go in and have gratitude and appreciation for who you are in that moment.
Yes.
So in that way, the story serves us.
Yes, absolutely. And what I have found personally fascinating is that in those times that I am thrown into situations that appear or feel very painful to me, that if I stay present with it and I keep my heart open, even in the midst of the greatest pain, there's a sense of power.
Oh, yes, definitely.
It's surprising.
Yes.
And I as you know, I recently had a situation like this where I felt betrayed. And you know a little bit about the story.
I do.
And that was that I had some feelings for this man, and another friend connected with him, and it was done publicly, and it was what I would have considered in the past to be extremely humiliating, and I did feel that. I felt those old feelings.
Right.
But the difference is, in the past, I would have shut down. I would have, I would not be talking about this publicly, first of all, okay? In fact, I come home from this trip where this incident happened, the incident.
And I was with her, by the way.
Yes, she was. Yes. She had nothing to do with the incident. She was just a bystander of pity. So I come home, and, my son and daughter-in-law, they're like, oh, so what happened? What happened? They're excited to hear the details. And I said, imagine the worst it could possibly go, and now multiply it by 100. And what was really interesting to me is that by the time I had gotten home, which was the very next day, that all that, the pain, the embarrassment, the betrayal, the abandonment, all those feelings that had come up for me, they were gone. I was laughing about it.
Exactly.
And even in the midst of it, when like the pain was at the threshold, where your heart just feels like, I can't believe this is happening, and all those feelings are coming up. In the midst of that, the worst moment, there was this roaring, erupting sense of intrinsic power.
Yes.
And it was beyond extraordinary that those can exist at the same time.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
One of the things that came up as you were starting to say that I wanted to point out was that the incident that happened was one of your biggest fears.
Yes.
And so in that, you were at a point of needing to break through your biggest fears.
Yes.
And so that's why it got created.
Absolutely.
Almost to a T exactly how you feared it would be created.
Didn't I do that amazingly well on some unconscious level? Yeah. Yeah, it was like truly, it was, you go to sleep at night and you have a dream about your worst fears, and the dream is perfect because it's coming directly from your unconscious mind.
Right.
This was exactly what the situation was for me. Literally, step by step, how it unfolded. And then when it just couldn't get any worse, then it got worse.
Exactly.
And not only that, but other situations came up where abandonment came. It was like everywhere I turned, there was this old feeling of abandonment. And the difference was I was different. I didn't close down. I didn't run from it. I didn't tell myself, stories about me not being deserving, or, like all those stories that we tell ourselves. I felt everything, really felt everything.
Yep.
But I stayed present, and I kept my heart open, and I communicated my truth. It's like what we were talking about, like putting the shield up to yourself.
Yes.
I didn't put the shield up to myself. And as a result, the whole experience was different. And I emerged from it with the most extraordinary gratitude I've ever felt in my life.
And the most extraordinary beauty. You radiated love in a way that was so magnificent. And part of that, as far as having been there and seeing everything that took place, haven't seen it play out.
Yes, it was a good show, huh?
And that's what I want to point out is that in that creation of bringing yourself to a point of experiencing one of your greatest fears, you also were extremely good in your creation of placing those that you trusted and loved right there so that you had a support system that you knew would be there.
Yes.
And in that way, that's how we prevent putting ourselves in victim mode. Now, I know that you weren't conscious that that's what you did at the time.
No.
But you saw that as it was playing out.
Yes. And it worked both ways. That was part of what I needed to happen, that the people, my 12 closest friends who I love beyond measurement, that this happens in front of everybody.
Yes.
And also that everybody is there to support me in the process.
Exactly. And that there was no judgment from any of
None.
The 12 of us. You notice she said I was one of her 12 most important friends. I was there.
Yes, absolutely. You're way up higher on the list. You know that.
Thank you. Yeah. And this is part of it, too.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that if you can bring laughter in and bring that level of joy, there's nothing that cannot be overcome.
Right.
There's nothing that can't be healed, and there's nothing that can't be done in a vibration of love.
Yes.
As long as we always have that ability. And we can have that as long as we choose it.
Yeah.
And that's what you did.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It felt amazing, and I'm so grateful to have gone through that, because now I know who I am even more.
Exactly.
And that's pretty powerful stuff. That's pretty powerful stuff. And like what you were saying before, you cannot know who you really are unless there's a testing, unless something pushes up against you, or something pushes up against your issues, or something.
Right.
And it's at that moment that you get to experience your greatest power if you keep your heart open.
Right. And that's where the ahas come in.
Right.
And that's in every aspect of life.
Yes.
We can either be comfortable just protecting ourselves in our job that we're unhappy in because it's familiar and it pays the bills, or in sitting at home and, just playing our role however we've created that.
Yeah.
Or we can get out there and we can push up against it because we know that that's really not who we are.
Right.
And when we push up against it is when we break through.
Absolutely.
So, and love to ourselves when we break through, that's a huge thing. One of the things I'm always asking my friends, myself, my clients, to do is to go in then and give love and gratitude to yourself. And it's not, it can be in a silly way, but it's not a joke. That is really sincere to be able to go in. And I love myself.
Yes.
And I am so grateful for what I just experienced with myself. And I'm so grateful for the way I behaved and for the way I worked through this, and that I had all my chosen people right there to hold the energy for me.
Right. Yes. Very beautiful.
It was beautiful.
Very,
it really
very
was.
Beautiful. Yeah. Life is so amazing and so glorious to give us these great opportunities.
Exactly.
To experience more of who we are.
Well, and that goes back into the love, too. If we have a love for life, and you certainly do, then, wow, is it amazing.
It is so amazing.
There's every part of it. The good, the bad, anything
every
that
part of
comes up, it's all amazing because you have such a deep love for life.
Yes. And I think a good measurement, I'm sure there's people thinking, well, I think I love myself. How does one ever really know if they love themselves? And this is my response to that. And that is, think of the person that you love or have ever loved the most. And think of the intensity, or feel the intensity of those feelings.
Yes.
And if you feel anything less than that for yourself, then you don't really love yourself.
Right. I believe that everybody has a love for themselves, more or less, or we wouldn't be alive.
That's true.
But on the other end of the spectrum is is that a love that is an honoring love and the depth of it. So uncovering more and more of the depth of the love for ourselves.
Yes.
And pretty much you can measure that by the experiences that you are having in life and your self-talk.
Right.
You know, there's even times with myself, as deep as I have gone, that I'll find myself in a situation, and even though I teach differently, I'll have some self-talk that I'll go, wow. But now I become conscious of it. It doesn't happen, and I just listen to it on a subconscious level.
Right.
I become instantly aware of it, and then it's, okay, so what's bringing that up in you?
Yes.
Okay, where do we need to go now with this to heal this, because I know it's not the truth.
Right.
And that's a huge part, is being able to acknowledge to myself when a negative self-talk comes up that that's not true. And I know it's not true. I might feel this way right now, but I also know that it's not a truth on a higher level for me.
Right. Right. And that's the discernment.
Exactly.
So for me, years ago, decades ago, I went on a negative self-talk diet. Okay? I'm talking like a life fasting from negative self-talk, and that was like my focus. That was like the core focus of my life for years. And it took some time, and it was a lot of work, but I cleaned out all the negative thinking. And so what I was left with was a fairly clean mind as far as, being supportive and positive with myself, but there was still something missing, and it took me a really, really long time to figure that out. And the thing that was missing was, even though I had stopped all that negative self-talk, there was still this invisible barrier over my heart, and I could not, for the life of me, for years, figure out how to take it down, even though I wanted to. That was my intention. I just couldn't figure that. And I would know that it was there because I would just feel even like a most subtle lack of connection. So, I mean, I'm really connected to somebody, but yet there was just the one little piece, that one little piece where you just go, and that was missing. And what took the wall down was situations like the incident.
Right.
it was that. So it was almost like I needed to go through pain or my worst fear or feelings of abandonment or whatever it was in order for me to make the choice in that moment. Exactly. To let the barrier down. I couldn't do it, when things are going along hunky-dory and, everybody's in love with me, I'm in love with everybody, It was only in these challenging situations. And it took a series of them. Yes. Yes.
And that's because of things that you and I have discussed. I know that you were in an energy and a vibration of wanting to break through some things, and you wanted to do it really fast.
Yes.
So that's why you brought in several, one right after the other, to push you to that point.
Right.
And you did that also knowing deep inside that you were strong enough and that you would do it.
Yes.
And that's what's beautiful about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And again, just enormous gratitude.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I see happening in the world, and you and I have spoken about this, is that relationships are changing.
Oh, definitely.
That the old paradigm of how it's supposed to look and who we're supposed to be and how our partner's supposed to be and, all those rules, they're chipping away. And I see more and more relationships, like couple relationships, that are so different.
Yes.
And they push us.
Yeah, they do. And it's because it's shattered. It's not just our paradigm. It's going all the way into our DNA with things that have come along with the DNA, belief systems and teachings, indoctrinations. It's come right along with the DNA.
Yeah.
So, the vibration now is really about learning to let love love.
Yes.
And that is without limits.
Yes.
And that rattles a lot of people's cages.
Yes, it does.
And it brings up a lot of insecurities. So in that, I would just challenge everybody to just keep plugging away and keep challenging themselves in their belief systems.
Yes.
To look deeper. One of the things that I share with people, when I was younger, I married quite young and had my first child by the time I was 18. And I was so in love with her when she was born. I mean,
Yeah.
I just poured my every ounce of love that I had into her and just absolutely couldn't imagine loving another child.
Yeah.
And as the youngest
Yes.
of 8, that put me to thinking.
Yeah, that's a problem.
So, because I never felt unloved. And when my daughter was about 3 months old, I went to my mom and asked her, I said, Mom, how did you possibly love all of us kids the way you loved us? I never felt unloved.
Yeah.
And she asked me what I meant. I explained that I was so in love with Tammy, I couldn't possibly think of having another child.
Yes.
Because I couldn't comprehend being able to have that level of love for another child or what it would take away from her. And my mom's wise words, and I love her so deeply for these, was, now, okay, my nickname to my parents, and it's a good thing, is Stinky, and so I repeat that to people, but it's precious to me.
And she's not, so just
Right.
so you know. Yeah.
And she turned to me and said, Stinky,
Yeah.
when you have another child, you'll understand.
Oh.
And when I had my next child, my son, I had just as much love and was in love with him, and it didn't take an ounce of my love away from my daughter, and I got it. The more you have to give, the more you have to give.
Yeah.
It's not metered out. It's not limited. Love is always there in abundance.
Yes.
There is no lack of. So anyone that's concerned about not being able to love this one, or if their partner also loves somebody else and it's showing and they have issues about that, just know when you actually let love, it perpetuates upon itself. There is no lack. There's no lack of love. The more love you have, the more love you have to give. The more love you have, the more love you have to give.
Yes. Yes. And so what we're talking about is an ideal relationship where you have two people who love themselves and love each other and are working towards a common space.
Yes.
Okay, that they create this space together. And in that situation, love grows. But I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to us, and maybe their relationship is less than ideal, and when they think about their partner going off and having a relationship with someone else, there's a threat. They feel like they're losing something, and that may in fact appear to be true, because their partner may give another person more attention or more gifts or more energy.
Yes.
And so in order for love to grow, I think there needs to be a certain framework.
Exactly, there does.
Yeah.
And the beginning of that framework is communication.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Getting everybody on the same page of level of understanding, and absolutely no deception.
Right. Right.
Whenever there's any energy of deception in any relationship, regardless of how many people are involved in it, and that's from parent to child as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, any deception whatsoever begins a negative, it'll grow upon itself, and it creates a negative energy that will start breaking things apart.
Yes.
So the first key is an understanding of absolutely no deception, being completely upfront, forthright and honest, and honoring each person in the relationship and what their particular needs happen to be.
Right.
So that if you need to take baby steps, you take baby steps. And it's perfect.
Yeah.
And it'll be perfect for every single person.
Yes.
The other angle of that is understanding jealousy. And jealousy issues are going to come up.
Yes.
Just understanding that to deal with it in love.
Yes.
And not make it about victimhood. And then the level of understanding that when there is jealousy, it is about you if you're the one that's jealous.
Yes.
It's something that you feel is lacking or a void within you. So, yes, it's not an easy road because we've been taught so many other things. If you choose to take that road, I can personally guarantee you that it has unlimited blessings, benefits, and beautiful, beautiful, joyful life. Doesn't mean it doesn't come with pain.
Yes.
there's a balance.
Yes.
And to know that it's a step at a time. Everybody's learning as we go, and a lot of the things that we're moving into in the higher vibrations.
Yes.
And it's to trust that.
Yeah.
And for me, it's about trusting the love and letting the love love.
Oh, letting the love love.
That was in one of my writings,
Yeah,
remember? And
that's
that's
like
how
a
it
book title.
culminated.
That's
Yes.
great. Yeah, letting the love love.
It's coming.
Yeah, it's true because it's like love is its own energy.
Exactly.
It's like an electrical switch. Like when you go in and you go into your house and you flick the switch on, you're just letting it flow. When you turn the switch off, you're actually stopping the connection.
Yes.
And it's the same with love. It's always there abundantly, without end, but we have the choice, the free will, to turn it off.
Well, and that's a lot of people believe that love is to be caged,
Yes.
is to be possessed, and that
Yes.
is the turning the switch off.
Yes.
As
Absolutely.
soon as you start putting parameters around it and start trying to shut it down and make it small,
Yes.
then you've actually created something less than pure love.
Yes. Yeah.
And I know that there's a lot of people that their level of understanding is only at that point, and that's okay.
That is okay.
Because that's their experience.
Right.
And they will learn as they are ready to learn into another arena. But I'm actually very surprised at the number of people I come in contact with pretty much on a daily basis that have quite a bit of the same understanding of love that I
Yes.
have. And I felt like I was a lone wolf when I first started understanding and receiving this information. And it was like, how do I share this with anyone?
Yeah.
Well, by not limiting myself,
Right.
by trusting myself and trusting that the information that I had, I knew was from Spirit, and I knew it was in love.
Yes.
And so I trust the love. And when you choose to trust the love, suddenly doors get open for you, and you see so many others that come into your path,
Yeah.
and it just continues to build from there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that you're in a very rare position because you've experienced love in completely opposite ways.
Yes, I have.
There was the old paradigm where you get married, you stay married, you're with that one person, and you had that whole experience for a long time, a couple of decades, right?
Yeah, over
Yeah.
28 years.
Wow. And then there's a point where you start receiving these messages that this old paradigm is
You're going to pull this all out of me, aren't you? To share. Okay.
If you feel comfortable.
Oh, I
do.
do. I
Okay.
do. You know I do.
Yeah,
because
I thought
pretty
so.
much
Otherwise,
really share
yeah.
it.
And this is internet radio. We could say anything we want. So.
Oh, okay.
Well,
that's what I was
can
kind of.
curse and no, we can, which is really good because I'm from New York, so sometimes I have a little gutter mouth, so it's good. Yeah. No,
we
please.
have fun with that. Well, my basic history in that is had a couple of marriages that weren't good, they were what they were meant to be at the time, and then met my husband, and we were very much monogamous, completely 100% monogamous to each other for over 25 years, pretty much at that point, and very religious. I've always been very spiritual and have always separated spirituality in a sense from religion.
Yes.
But religion was a very big part of what we were involved in at the time. And I was having some beautiful experiences in meditation and in astral travel with spirit, and I was being shown some things. And what I call that, and it's funny because that card was talking about it from the get-go, the information that was flowing to me, I call it sensual, sexual, spiritual wholeness. And I am writing a book about that. The information I was given was about multiple relationships, about sharing the love and letting the love love.
Yes.
And it wasn't about polygamy. It wasn't about polyamory. I was told very clearly that that's not what I was being shown, that it was bigger than that. It was more than that.
Yeah.
And I struggled with it a little bit, even though it rang true to my spirit.
Yes.
It was things that I had known my whole life. And so I struggled with it a little bit, and then finally just said, I know truth when I hear it.
Yes.
So I was actually shown my husband's first other partner.
Wow.
And talked to him about it and created it and put them together. Now, we had a lot of stumbling blocks on the way. We had not experienced that before.
Right.
And I was already at a point in our life of love and trust that there weren't jealousy issues that normally would come up for me. There was times when something would come up and I would look at it and say, well, gee, I didn't think I was jealous about that, but there's an issue here, so maybe there's something that I didn't realize I had a jealousy issue about. And I wouldn't have called it jealousy, and my husband didn't call it jealousy either, but there was an issue.
Right.
Okay, there was things, and so we would work through it.
Something that made you feel insecure.
Right.
Whatever you might call it. So.
You know, and in that, it was about communication, clear communication with us. And so the way I say it is the rest is history.
Yeah.
Because even to the point that it came down to a year ago, my husband and I are still together. We are still companions with one another and, in a sense, a couple. But we also have other relationships, other loves. It's not about casual sex. It's not about going and just having casual sex with somebody else. With myself, Spirit reveals to me loves from the past, from past lives, when they come into my life. And when they come in, we're meant to be brought back together. The same with him. So it's not like we're just out there casually meeting somebody and saying, okay, let's get into a relationship with them.
Because that's not what we're talking about.
That's not what we're talking about.
That's the opposite of what we're talking about. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and in that, there's been some amazing experience, some very deeply hurtful, and breaking through that and coming through it on the other end is some of the most choice lessons and learning that could be. It actually came right down to the point of when we walked into this together, we were committed to walk hand in hand eternally with each other and side by side. We'd always been best friends and everything else. So we saw others coming into our relationship and joining us on an equal level. But we never saw either one of us going differently away from each other. And that actually was something I called in, apparently, last year. And it shook me to the core because we were going to get divorced and he was actually going to go have a single relationship with another woman.
Right.
And we weren't going to stay together. So in that, that's why I'm saying things will still happen, still come up. And it had to go to the point of me just standing in unconditional love and knowing that in loving him, I always would.
Yes.
And if that's what he chose, then I wasn't happy about it, but I would support him in that choice. And through that period of time, he began to see differently. And long story short is that we both made different choices. We decided to change the way that our relationship looked versus ending the contract of our relationship.
Right.
And we are in an even higher vibration of love with each other. You've seen it.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's beautiful.
Yes.
And we do have other relationships still, but they're very strong with us. One feeds to the other in a very positive way. And that's what it's about, is it's not limited.
Right.
The love continues to grow with each and every person. And in that, some people would think that I'm way out there on a limb and crazy, because you know that I willingly and desiringly and lovingly bring others into the relationship with my other partners when I have been shown that they have a relationship together.
Right.
And I do it in love.
Yeah.
And I support them and love them in that. And to me, that's the beauty of it. That's unconditional love.
Yes.
And it doesn't limit anything. That's what I want everybody to know. It doesn't limit a thing. My love continues to grow. Their love continues to grow. I'm not loved any less by them by any means. And so there is no lack.
Yeah. And what I hear beneath the surface is that there's intentionality. That the same you can take two couples and they can each from the surface look like they're doing the same exact behaviors in the world.
Yes.
But it's really about the energy that comes from. So a lot of times we see people that have, they're in a marriage or they're in a so-called committed relationship, and they're having these secret relationships with other people.
Right.
And that's not about love. That's about, really shielding your heart, and that's about, maybe trying to get even with your partner because you don't feel loved, and, it's from all these lower vibrations.
It's about deception.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's really because we feel powerless, and we're trying to get a sense of power back, and this is why a lot of relationships end up not working, as we know. But what you're talking about, and what you have so brilliantly and beautifully exhibited to the world, anybody who knows you, is that when you really love someone, it's the old sing song, when you love someone, set them free.
Set them free.
Yeah, and it's not just a one-time thing.
Exactly.
It's constant. It's just a constant setting free, and in that there's new love and greater love that grows and grows and grows, and you discover more of who you really are.
And and more of who they really are. And it's not even in the concept of setting them free by shutting down your love for them. So I'm letting them walk away type thing. That's not it. It's about not possessing and holding them, even if somebody pulls away for a while and needs to work through some of their own issues. You don't withdraw your love from them.
You just keep loving.
You still keep loving them.
And that's exactly what I have seen you do over and over and over. And there have been many times that I have watched you and been totally astounded at your ability to love in the most challenging of circumstances. And because of that, I've learned to love at a greater level.
Thank you.
In ways that I didn't even think I was capable of. And I'm very grateful.
Thank you.
So we only have about another minute left. So would you share your contact information if somebody wants to get in touch with you?
Certainly. My website is Dallas Healing. Now, Dallas is my honest-to-God last name. Okay. So Dallas is DALLAS, Healing, HEALING.com is my website. You can reach me with email at dallashealing@yahoo.com or debbie@dallashealing.com. And the phone number is 801-427-4568.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Debbie.
Thank you.
It's been fun. So you think about love, and you begin to wonder, what's love really capable of? What I invite you to look within yourself for is a deeper level of love, a deeper level of understanding, a deeper level of compassion, not just for other people, but for yourself. And no matter how much you love now, imagine loving 10 times more, 100 times more, because there really is no limit. Many people are afraid to love because they fear their heart will break. And the truth is, the secret is that no one has ever told us is that your heart is supposed to break. Your heart is meant to break open, because in that breaking open, there's even more love. There's love that is eternal. So I would love to know your thoughts about love and how it shows up for you and how you show up for love and what your new intentions are for loving and being loved. And email me at Nanice at Nanice.com. That's Nanice at Nanice.com, or just go to my website at Nanice.com, and you can contact me from the site. And just a reminder, there's lots of free stuff on my site. There's a whole bunch of articles. In fact, there's one particular article that you would just love if you've enjoyed today's show, and that is Finding Love in All the Right Places. So let me know what you think about that, and I have a free I Am book on my website, and a beautiful song by the Ascension Tribe, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So enjoy, and I'll see you next week. Have a great week. You have been listening to Chai with Nanice.
Thank you for having Chai with Nanice. Please go to www.nanice.com for great free stuff that will empower you to live your best possible life. Free books, articles, shows, meditation audios, and so much more at Nanice.com. That's Nanice.com. Nanice's books are also available in all major bookstores and Amazon. Check out The Infinite Power of You, Even Gandhi Got Hungry and Buddha Got Mad, Zest Point, Lip Prints, and many others by Nanice Ellis. To find out about one-on-one coaching and how Nanice can personally coach you to experience your best life possible, please email mybestlife@nanice.com.